Your mother used to hum this melody. Do you remember? Dr. Brennan Eldridge's voice was barely a whisper as his fingers moved gently across the guitar strings, filling the sterile hospital room with soft, aching music. The young woman in the bed, 28-year-old Celestine Whitmore, stared at the ceiling, her eyes distant, her lips sealed in a silence that had lasted 3 months. Brennan had seen many patients after traumatic brain injuries, but Celestine's case was different. The surgery had been successful. The physical healing progressed normally, but something inside her had simply stopped. She refused to speak, refused to engage, retreated so deeply into herself that even her wealthy father, Harrison Whitmore, stood helplessly outside the walls she'd built. "The nurses tell me you loved music once," Brennan continued softly, his fingers finding another chord. "That you and your mother volunteered together, teaching children to sing?" He paused, watching her carefully. "Before the accident." A flicker, barely perceptible, crossed Celestine's face. Brennan was 34, a neurologist who'd specialized in trauma cases, not because of ambition, but because of understanding. His own childhood had been fractured by his parents' bitter separation when he was 12. His father, Malcolm, had been abusive, not physically, but emotionally, his words sharp weapons that left invisible scars. His mother, Iris, had fled with Brennan, but the damage was done. Brennan had stopped talking to his father entirely, and the silence between them had stretched into decades. Music had saved him then. His mother played piano, and in those melodies, Brennan found a language that spoke louder than words. Now he brought his guitar to work, using it as therapy for patients whose voices had been stolen by trauma. "I know what silence feels like," Brennan said, setting the guitar aside and sitting in the chair beside Celestine's bed. "When words feel too dangerous, when speaking means facing things we're not ready to face." He folded his hands, his voice gentle but steady. "After my parents separated, I didn't speak to my father for 22 years. Not because I couldn't, because I chose not to. Because silence felt safer than forgiveness." Celestine's eyes shifted, meeting his for the first time. In them, Brennan saw recognition, the understanding of someone who knows exactly what kind of silence costs. The accident had happened 6 months ago. Celestine and her mother, Eleanor, had been driving to a community center where they volunteered, teaching underprivileged children music and art. A car ran a red light. Eleanor died instantly. Celestine survived with a severe brain injury that required emergency surgery. When she woke, the doctors assured Harrison that his daughter would recover fully. But Celestine never spoke again. "She blames herself," Harrison had told Brennan during their first consultation, his voice breaking. "She was driving. She thinks if she'd been faster, more careful, Eleanor would still be alive." Over the following weeks, Brennan visited Celestine every day, always bringing his guitar. He played the songs her mother had loved, folk melodies, old hymns, gentle ballads. He spoke to her about his own fractured family, about the weight of unspoken pain, about the difference between giving up and giving yourself time to heal. One afternoon, as autumn light filtered through the hospital windows, Brennan played a melody his mother had taught him, a song about finding home after being lost. "My mother sang this when I was afraid," he said softly. "After we left my father, when I'd wake up crying in the middle of the night." He looked at Celestine, his eyes honest and vulnerable. "My mother told me that some silences heal us and some silences destroy us. The trick is knowing which is which." Celestine's hand moved, slowly, trembling, and picked up the small whiteboard the nurses had left for her. She wrote 3 words, "I hear her." Brennan's breath caught. "Your mother?" Celestine nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. She wrote again, "In the music, I hear her voice, but if I speak, she'll be truly gone." "Oh, Celestine," Brennan whispered, understanding flooding through him. "Speaking doesn't erase her. Silence doesn't preserve her. Your mother lives in every kindness you learned from her, every lesson, every moment you choose to help others the way she helped you." The tears came harder now, and Celestine wrote furiously, "I was driving. It's my fault." "No," Brennan said firmly, taking her hand. "Accidents aren't choices. You didn't choose that car. You didn't choose that moment. Your mother wouldn't want you to live in silence because of something you couldn't control." Days passed. Brennan continued his visits, and slowly Celestine began to engage more, nodding, writing longer messages, even attempting a smile when Brennan played her favorite song. Harrison watched this transformation with tearful gratitude. One evening, as Brennan sat playing guitar, Celestine suddenly reached out and touched the strings, stopping the music. She looked at him with something urgent in her eyes, then wrote, "Your father. You haven't spoken to him in 22 years?" Brennan nodded slowly. "Not since I was 12. Why?" "Because he hurt me. Because I was angry. Because—" Brennan paused, the truth settling over him like a revelation. "Because staying silent felt easier than risking more pain." Celestine wrote again, her hand steady now. "Just like me." The words struck Brennan like a physical blow. He'd been telling Celestine to break her silence while maintaining his own. He'd been teaching her about healing while refusing to heal himself. "You're right," Brennan said quietly. "I've been telling you to speak while I've been choosing silence for 2 decades. He looked at her, vulnerability raw in his eyes. "Maybe we both need to find our voices again." Over the following weeks, something shifted between them. Celestine began physical therapy with renewed determination, and Brennan, for the first time since childhood, reached out to his father. The conversation was awkward, painful, filled with old wounds and tentative apologies, but it was a beginning. One afternoon, Celestine asked to see Brennan's mother. When Iris arrived, Celestine wrote, "Teach me the song, the one about finding home." For an hour, Iris sang softly, and Celestine listened with an intensity that spoke of someone preparing for something significant. When the song ended, Celestine looked at Brennan, then at her father who stood in the doorway, then back at the piano Iris had brought. And then, for the first time in 3 months, Celestine spoke. "My mother," her voice was hoarse, broken, beautiful. "My mother taught me that kindness is the only language everyone understands." Tears streamed down her face as words so long trapped finally found freedom. "She's not gone. She's in every note I hear, every kind word I choose to speak, every person I choose to help the way she helped me." Harrison collapsed into a chair, sobbing with relief. Brennan felt his own tears fall. And Iris, this woman who saved her son through music, simply smiled. Months later, Brennan sat in a coffee shop with both his parents, together for over 2 decades. The healing wasn't complete. It would take years, but the silence was broken. His father, Malcolm, had begun therapy, working to understand the damage he'd caused, and Brennan had learned that forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it simply makes room for a different future. Celestine, now speaking regularly and working through her grief in therapy, visited often. She'd started a music program at the community center in her mother's name, teaching children the way Eleanor taught her. "You saved me," Celestine told Brennan one evening as they sat in the hospital garden where their journey had begun. "No," Brennan said softly, his guitar resting across his lap. "You saved yourself. I just played the music that reminded you why speaking matters." "Then we saved each other," Celestine replied, her smile warm and genuine. "Because you taught me that silence can be survival, but speaking is how we truly live." They sat together in the fading light, two people who'd found their voices again, not through grand gestures or sudden revelations, but through the quiet, persistent power of kindness, music, and the courage to face what silence had hidden. In a world that often silences pain rather than healing it, remember this: your voice matters. Your story matters. The words you've kept locked away deserve to be spoken, not because speaking is easy, but because silence, when it becomes a prison rather than a sanctuary, slowly erases who we are. Choose courage. Choose connection. Choose to speak, even when it hurts. That's where healing begins. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.